Hello, class. So, for my project, what I'm thinking about doing um, for my needs assessment is working with my company and trying to gain a better idea of why um, just those older salesmen, as well as the other employees at the individual locations, are against using our agri-intelligence as well as making fertilizer recs and really just kind of doing everything within agri-intelligence. So a little background, agri-intelligence is a technology platform that the company I'm employed for uses. And what agri-intelligence does, it's basically, in simplest of terms, it's a way for us as a company to track farmers kind of their records. It tracks their planting data, their harvest data, what fertilizer gets put on, what fertilizer should get put on. You can look at the soil samples in there, what amounts of nutrients is in what sections of the soil. And there's really just multiple things you can do in there. You can create maps of what parts of the field yielded better. There's parts in there that you can look at. You can take actually a tissue sample. What a tissue sample is you submit a leaf of the plant that they're growing to the lab, which is actually in Omaha, Nebraska. And the lab looks at the leaf tissue and tells you how much of the nutrient is actually within the plant. And this just kind of gives us a better idea of what to target to talk to the growers about and try to, in end goal, give them a better crop. And the thing about AI that, in my mind, most of the older salesmen and just the salesmen in a whole don't like is the technology aspect of it. There's a bunch of moving parts within AI that the salesmen, they just don't want to learn. They're resistant to learning and adapting to use it. And I think part of this is mostly this only happens with the salesmen that are newly into Helena as the company, or they're just an older salesman and the older generation just doesn't believe in the technology. The problem with this is they have to have roles for people to come. Their roles are called agri-intelligence specialist. And the person in that agri-intelligence role has to come and do all the agri-intelligence work for the salesman. Then the salesman just use the benefits and the reports that are formed in agri-intelligence to take to the grower and help sell things. In reality, all the salesmen knew how to do this, which they train the salesmen when they're hired on of how to do this. If all the salesmen took this training to heart and they learned how to use it and use it well, then the company would save money without having to have as many people in that agri-intelligence specialist role, because the salesmen were doing a lot of that work that they should be doing rather than the AIS. So this kind of goes into multiple different stages. It's a business need, such as stage one. Agri-intelligence is really good for business. The farmers love to see the reports of how their crop's doing and what their field needs, as well as what their field doesn't need and what it's good in. Performance need. The employees should know how to do this. There is specific training that the employees go through when they're hired on. Like, I went through this training, and the employees go through this training, and whenever I was hired on, I went through this training, and now I would say I'm advanced with agri-intelligence, and I'd rarely reach out to this AIS person just because I paid attention during that training and I'm familiar with the system. There's a learning need. I wouldn't say so much that the organization needs to train the employees better, because they do a phenomenal job training. It's just the people who they train tend to not remember it, or they just don't care too much to learn it because they're like, oh, I'll never use this in my mind. There's a learner need for sure. The actual learners just don't care. They're like, well, the growers don't like this. And coming from a firsthand experience, so I was recently hired on with this company in May. And I went through a training in early September with one of my coworkers who's been hired on for 3 years. He's had other training, and this training was making fertilizer rec. So what a fertilizer rec is, it's variable rate fertilizer. So basically, let's just break a field into half and half. The left-hand side of a field needs 50 pounds of nitrogen, and the right side needs 25 pounds of nitrogen. This fertilizer spreader is going to automatically adapt and apply the 50 pounds it needs where it needs it. And so the rates is constantly changing and applying more fertilizer where it needs it and less where it doesn't need it. And this kind of goes off of the soil samples, what's already in the soil, as well as how well you want the crop to do and previous trends of how well the crop does in that section of the field. But anyway, back to the training. So I went to this training with another employee. We both went through this. And now he constantly asked me to make him fertilizer recs. He says, "Kay, can you make these recs for me?" Just because he knows that I'm familiar with the training and I know how to do them on a pretty advanced level. When on the flip side, he has no idea how to make one. And this is just frustrating to employees like me because it kind of restricts my work that I need to be doing and restricts my success because I'm spending my time to do their work that they've had just as much training, if not more than me, on the same thing that I'm doing for them. So that was just kind of a brief overview of my topic and my presentation plan. Feel free to reach out and email me if you guys have any questions or want to know some further detail. I look forward to hearing about your guys' project and talking about these in class on Wednesday.